all seasoned wholesalers know that, but I really think that a lot of newbies don't.
What is going on, guys? Welcome to today's episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast. This is the show where you can make massive income, not just passive income with your real estate investing business. And today is Monday. It's the Scale Show. And I am super excited for today's episode because we have on one of my really good friends who's also now one of my, I guess, like co-partners in my local market here in Spokane, and is literally the most gifted, I would say, wholesale off-market real estate salesperson I've ever met. So Cody Cressey, super stoked to have you on the show today, man. Just so people kind of know what you're about a little bit, give us like the 3-minute intro, kind of how we met each other, what your business has looked like over the past couple of years, and kind of what you specialize in now.
Well, first of all, thanks for that intro, Mike. I'm tearing up over here. But so, I mean, I think we started around the same time. It was like 2018, 2019, you know, and I just chose to do cold calling for off-market deal finding. You know, wholesaling was supposed to be a means to an end. So we wanted to collect rentals and maybe do some flips. We started to cold call. We found that we were pretty successful at that. And we closed around, I think it was 49 deals. I always just rounded up to 50 deals for the first year.
The first year, deal a week in year number one.
Yeah.
That's
and
freaking
you know,
wild.
you say that in one sentence, but there's so many gray hairs here. If anybody's tuned into the YouTube channel, I also did that from Europe. Maybe that's a different show for a different time, but I was living.
So
in Sweden,
you lived in Sweden and you did
night.
49 deals in your first year, all virtual.
Yeah. Working a regular job and then doing that in the middle of the night. So, you know, takes big action to get things off the ground, right? Just like getting a plane off the ground. So anyways, after that, we partnered up with some local guys and they brought some seed capital in. We did the whole song and dance with, you know, 2-3 salespeople, dispositions, TC, project manager. We were clipping like 60 flips out, maybe, I don't know, 80 wholesales a year. So like 130, 150 deals for those following 2 years. And that was a lot of fun. That also is a couple sentences that packs a lot. But that's where I really cut my teeth in this business and learned a lot, right? I still encounter deals where there are things that I've never seen before. But most everything, I feel like, not most everything, but like, you know, let's say 90% of deals, it's like I understand how to do pretty much everything. And that's just from all those reps. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
10,000 hours or whatever people say. So,
Yeah. I mean, you've been a hustler, just like, you know, Dan and I were. And I think that was why you and I kind of bonded so early on. So I remember back early, like, you know, 2020, before Dan and I had even done a deal yet, you and me would talk on the phone like all the time, just talking about like deals and things that we were working on and like our goals and like random stuff. And it's funny because I don't know, I considered you one of my really good friends long before I even met you in person.
Yeah, same.
Like I remember the first time we met, we went at the little restaurant, like the pizza place that's kind of by my house, and we sat outside, and you were like, oh, dude, like you are a big dude. You know, Allie said that you were fit. You know, you work out, and I was like, I forget that I haven't seen you because I've been talking to you in person, almost, like almost
about a year,
like,
year before we met in person. Yeah,
forever.
Well, I was stuck over there during COVID too, so that was another reason that we hadn't met. You know.
Yeah. But like the thing that always stood out to me about you is, you know, we approached the business from such a different way because Dan and I, we had engineering backgrounds. And so we approached things from this very like data-driven analytical approach. And, you know, we had solid systems, we had solid marketing, like we were comfortable with that, but we weren't able to close deals. And then we started doing stuff with you guys with like some little JVs. And we were just like, you guys don't do any of that. You literally just like are talking and somehow these deals are falling in your lap. And so like that, like, did you even realize at that point in time that you were doing something that was so out of the norm and we were crushing it that much? Or did you just think that it was that easy and everyone else was stupid?
No. I mean, we definitely realized it, you know, because we could see what our competitors were doing and we'd hear what people were doing. So, you know, we tried to stay humble, but in the beginning we kind of could see that like, okay, we're pretty good at this, you know, and why is that? And, you know, the quick answer is all that stuff you're talking about, systems, marketing, KPIs, is as important as it is, which I fully understood. I just went ahead and didn't do any of that. And I hired people to do that for me or partnered with people to do that for me or with me. Mm-hmm. So I never focused on those things because I'm a high I for anybody that's ever done a disc profile test. And so I know that kind of stuff, though I can do it and I can fumble through it, it's going to take my focus off what I'm great at, which is sales and talking to people and taking care of people. That's my gift, you know? So I guess we just stayed in our lanes, and like, you know, the first year the accounting was a mess and we figured it out at the end, you know, because we made $500,000 in our first year of business. And we're like, I think we'll figure it out. And we did figure it out. Right. Yeah. So jump out the plane, build the parachute on the way down.
Yeah.
I mean, Cody, from like my perspective, hearing that the first time, there's a lot of people out there that would kill to do that many deals their first year. Right. And especially even now you're doing maybe one deal a month or 2 deals a month. Would you contribute like that 80-20 principle of just doubling down on your strengths and maybe hiring out your weaknesses? Or if there's a one-man operator who it's like, hey, I want to get better at sales, what would you advise them to do in that situation?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I still think as a one-man operator, there are services that you can pay for, and it all comes down to your time, like every single day. Like I would just advise to maybe like sort of catalog your week and write down what you're doing every single week. And then you could go back and look at that and be like, how much time did I focus on offer making? How much time did I focus on prospect follow-up? And how much time did I focus on designing my business cards and KPIs and all this crap? Like KPIs are I think everybody knows what it means, but if you don't, it means a key performance indicator. And so if there's no performance, there's nothing to indicate.
Yeah.
And
right.
so the key is to produce, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then figure out the systems and the things along the way. So I'm not directly answering your question, Dylan, but I'm agreeing with you with the 80-20, that I think that if you're really good at something, find something that you can pay for, or a service or a person or a partner, you know what I mean? If you want to scale, that's really the only way to go. I don't know anybody that has scaled a 7 or 8 figure wholesaling business by themselves. I've never heard anybody doing that.
No, and like my origin story was, I think it took me, almost 4 or 5 months to do my first deal. And that wasn't from lead flow. That's because I sucked on the phone.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And right. And so someone like Cody comes in and just like starts slinging them without any of that stuff. It should be motivating and not, the other way around to other people who are listening.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, totally. So what do you think most people get it wrong, Cody, when it comes to doing sales like this? Because, it's not like you just have your target demographic of sellers. Like you've taken down deals with the old cranky landlord, you've taken it down with like the nice couple that's like your age, to the older single lady, to the crackheads. Like I've seen you do deals with every spectrum you could possibly think of on sellers. So where do you think the like average investor that's trying to get better at that, they get it wrong?
Yeah, I think that they overcomplicate it. I think that they treat it like a sales job. Like if you're selling solar or you're doing some type of door-to-door sales where you need to stick to this regimen and I got to walk them through my process. And because so many people are focused on all these books and all these podcasts, which are great. Like those are awesome tactics to keep in your mind. But at the basis, I think where people get it wrong is they don't treat people like people, and they treat them like prospects. Mm-hmm. And I know that sounds really simple and like cliche, but it couldn't be more true. Like when you're sitting in someone's living room, like I've told my old sales guys this, like if they have dog hair on the ground and there's trash everywhere, you need to sit on that sofa if they invite you to. You need to get down on their level and look at them and mirror their body language and just listen to them. We got 2 ears and 1 mouth. And I was taught that from an early age in sales. And I think that that's one of the keys that you can kind of remember on appointments and sort of be able to correct yourself by just listening more, focusing on being likable and matching tone. And I think that when I've gone on appointments with other people or sales guys that I've trained, I hear them, maybe it's because they want to impress me because I was their boss at the time, but they're just yapping, you know what I mean? And they're not pausing. And you watch that encounter and you're thinking to yourself, like, does that guy like my guy? Like, I think at this point, I don't know if he likes him because he's not letting him speak. And it's really that caveman, like, I like you, I will sell house. Like, I'm serious. Like if you can get people to like you and you're close on price, they're going to work with you, you know?
Yeah, totally. I mean, and perfect example of that, just this past weekend, you know, 'cause your sister's also very good at this as well. You guys have the same, I don't know, the Cressey code over there. That's what you can call your sales book when you want to be a narcissist and write a book about yourself. But like she's also very good at this. And we literally got a deal here in Spokane, you know, that came in off of a piece of mail. She responded to it relatively quickly. And there was competing offers that were $30,000 higher than she got the agreed to contract for. And well, fully came down to that the seller liked her better and was willing to give her 30 grand for just like rapport. And so like those of us that are kind of hard headed, you can't even imagine that. But when you live in the eyes of the seller, right? What are they worried about? They're worried about their own security. They're worried around their comfort to the transaction. They're worried about trust. They're willing to give somebody $30,000 purely because they kind of like the vibe of that person better.
Absolutely.
You know, which is crazy.
Absolutely. And like little bullet points on that were like, this gal had a dog that she told Allie on the phone prior that she only likes girls, the dog, you know, and she told her a couple other little nuggets. So Allie remembered these and used them on the appointment in person. She really trusted her. She had a great appointment and she got the deal, you know? So exactly like you said.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, for anyone that's listening, they're like, rewind 60, 120 seconds to listen to all that again. That was like really good. But Cody, back up just a little bit. Did you have any formal sales training from like a previous employer or books that you read, or is this all natural for you?
Yeah, no, I did. I had a job from 2014 to 2018 working in sales as an account manager. So I got trained by my former boss, and he was a very talented salesman. It's always been a natural thing though, if I'm going to be honest, you know, from yard sales as a kid, my parents could see it in me and they're like, my gosh, that kid's going to sell, you know, ketchup popsicle to a lady in white gloves or whatever. So it's been something that I've known about. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, right? So I never thought that like, you know, what's my business? Salesman? Like I need to start a business and then sales will complement that inside of that business. But the more that I've learned and the more that I pushed in sales is that, I mean, life, like literally life is sales. And if you get good at this skill, it's going to help you out in every aspect, in my opinion. Having a smile on your face and saying please and thank you opens so many doors, right?
It does. Totally. Yeah. It's huge. You know, and the funny thing is too, is this isn't even just on the acquisition side, but one of the interesting things that we've been going through with this whole, I guess like partnership that we started up just a couple months ago is, you know, for our backyard home buyers, national company, we have a guy on our team that does disposition. And so kind of one of the thoughts, I guess, when we started up was that, you know, you guys get the deals, we kick it over to him, he would do the disposition for us. What happens so often is he goes and calls the same book of buyers that we've all used before. They won't give them the time of day, but then you call them. And even if it's somebody that you like kind of lightly know, you're able to get them interested in your deal. So you're selling it on the disposition side as well.
Yeah.
And so I guess, do you have like the same sort of sales process or like, I don't know, way that you approach those conversations, or is it kind of a different methodology because it's a more
Sure. Yeah. Anybody that's listening, if you have a B2B sales background, it's definitely more in line with that. So now you're talking to a professional, you're talking to an entrepreneur, you're talking to somebody who's going to put up their own capital. I think one of the biggest strengths that you can have as a wholesale dispositions manager or a solo operator doing dispositions is have some knowledge on rehabs. If you don't, you should straight up tell them that, because these guys will sniff it out in a second. If you don't know what PEX plumbing is and Romex wiring is, you need to go Google that, because these are just simple terms that these guys can spout off like that. And so with us having done a handful of rehabs in the beginning, I saw more success with dispositions when I knew what I was talking about. And then they take you more seriously. At the end of the day, if you're giving a great deal away, they're going to buy it if you get it in front of them. But the deals that are on the line, those can be sold with tactics that it's almost like if you're coming across more experienced, which a lot of times at this point in my career, I am. There's a lot of investors that are on their 7th, 8th, 10th flip, and they know my old company name and they know how many flips that we've done. So they trust us, you know what I mean? And I take that seriously too. I don't want to sell people bad deals because I want repeat business. So, getting off the rails, but that's kind of how I treat those.
Yeah. It's more reputation based, right? I think a little bit. And then also too, like you said, people are going to sniff out BS a little bit more when they also have an expertise in what you're trying to do, versus with a seller, they're typically coming from that position of desperation, chasing.
But like B2B sales, like they are like an account basically, so if anybody that hasn't done that or doesn't understand that, if you didn't go to business school like I didn't, what they teach you in those roles for account management specifically is that's a relationship you need to foster. So we're talking about lunch on a monthly basis or at least a quarterly basis, coffees, little gift cards, like, because that guy is going to buy multiple deals from you each year. You know what I mean? I mean, I bet you if we open up the comments on this thing, how many people that are actively doing deals, like how many of you just text a list of 7 to 10 buyers? I know you send out your MailChimp of 1,500 buyers, but we all know it's like the same 7 guys that are coming back around. So take care of those guys, chop it up with them, just like me and you did. You bought deals from me, I bought deals from you, and we spent hours on the phone. Therefore, we had trust.
Totally. And what's so funny too is like what you just said there about getting people on the phone and actually doing that. It is amazing how many people are just so resistant to it. Don't you say, Dylan, like people ask us about Dispo and scale all the time. And every time we say that, they go, okay, cool. That makes sense. So anyway, I'm going to go sign up for MailChimp.
Yeah. Right. And a lot of problems in this business, and not even problems, but a lot of issues can be solved just by picking up the phone on every aspect of this business. Yeah. And it gets better with reps. Like someone who's not as naturally gifted like myself, like as Cody is, it just takes reps. You eventually get better at it too, or hire a Cody. There's your 2 options.
So something that I guess like when people are looking at, I don't know, I would say like building out their sales process, you're saying the entry everyone as an individual, not as like a product or a transaction. Ultimately, if you want scale, you have to have some level of like process or uniformity with it.
Sure. Absolutely.
How did you approach that, especially when you were at Homefront? You guys were doing several hundred deals a year.
Yeah.
Like there's no way that every single one was just shooting from the hips, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah. So do you want me to walk you through our process or?
Yeah. Just walk through the process or give like what's some actionable stuff that people can use to better refine their sales process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a pretty detailed, process, and I'm sure if you YouTube it or Google it, like you'll figure out, different processes and stuff like that. But if I were to bullet point it for you, I mean, we start out with like a lead manager talking to the lead, and they do a warm pass over to the acquisitions manager. The acquisitions manager is going to have a various amount of touches depending on the motivation level or the price level of the prospect, right? So if we fast forward to the in-person appointment or the on-the-phone pitch, now we're going to talk about our script. And our script is reminding the seller of everything that they told them about the property, the condition, reminding the seller about how we're going to help them and how we feel like this is a good fit for us. And this could be a win-win, right? And a lot of times we do this in person. And I know a lot of people listening and a lot of people in scale are doing in-person acquisitions in their markets, which I always believe is a more is going to be a higher rate of contract and closes. Depends on what you're doing. If you're doing a volume game nationwide or if you're doing it locally for 1 to 2 deals. So we'll pretend like we're doing it locally, 1 to 2 deals, right? And then after you give your pitch, excuse me, and you get your offer accepted, we will take a moment to explain to them exactly what's going to happen next. So our transaction coordinator, Samantha or whatever, she's going to reach out to you and she is going to get this into the title company. We're going to open up escrow, deposit that earnest money that we both agreed on. And then from there, you're just going to be contacted for your signing appointment. So we tell them exactly what's going to happen. And then we leave them with a folder that has all that information on a little 1 sheet with bullet points, really simple. Like this is what's going to happen, because just like anybody, you're going to retain about 10, 20% of the information you just heard. So now they have something to revert back to. They have the acquisitions manager's business card. They have the transaction coordinator's business card, and they have a gift card for $20 to Starbucks, just as a little thank you from us, So that's what we would do on all the in-person appointments. And we had them in the office ready to be mailed out as soon as we signed a deal virtually. And we would send that out as well virtually. So now you're getting walked through our process, right? Like when you call Verizon or something, are they like, so what do you want to do? Like, I don't really know, like they walk you through the steps, right? We're going to pass you here. Now you're on hold for this. Now you're there. Now you're with the customer service team and we got your issue solved. So the prospects are looking for the same thing. They're like, where do I go now? What do I do? So you need to direct them through your business and have a process for that. And that looks different for everybody, but that's kind of how ours looked.
Yeah, just setting basic expectations and actually doing what you say you're going to do, which is fundamental courtesy for human beings.
Yeah, totally. Exactly.
What it's the saying, like a confused mind takes no action or something like that. So you're just taking away all of the possible confusion and steps in the process and laying it out in an easy to digest format.
Yeah. And that process was set for every lead. So even if we got a text lead where ARV is 300 and they want 350, everybody got an offer. So we still got on the phone. The acquisition guys still went through the script. They still made the pitch. And we actually got a lot of deals that way just by working the system.
One of the things we get asked about so regularly is around like specifically the offer process and how exactly you recover when like a seller rejects your first offer, or, that initial conversation that you have around the offer is like significantly lower than the seller's hoping for. I mean, I've seen you get deals in those sort of situations.
Yeah.
What are some tips or like thought process around like specifically the offer and how to get better and how to like continue that conversation after they've rejected you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really tough to pinpoint, right? Because every situation and every offer is so nuanced with what they need and how you're going to go for the close, right? Specifically with real estate and in the fact that this is one of the only like high ticket items that is like negotiable. Like when you're selling other things or buying other things, the price is set and there's a little variance, but these 20, 30K swings, it's really fascinating if you think about real estate and how it can be sold and bought off market. But anyways, the way that we do it mainly is we'll sit down with the seller. And like I said in the beginning, when we talked about the process earlier, is we'll remind them of everything that we're going to need to fix, because we just want that to come up in their head again, that there's rehab to be done here and there's work to be done. And along, setting that up, like something that I've always done is on the appointment is I'll ask seller, like, well, what do you think that's going to cost? Like, that new kitchen. And, oh, well, actually we got a quote a couple months ago. It was like $15,000, it's perfect. In my head, I know I can do a kitchen from Lowe's for $7,500, including appliances. So like, I'm doing this math along the way, and then I'm using that math against the seller at the end of the conversation. Hopefully there's no sellers listening to this podcast. So I'm counting it all up, right? So I think that math is a big deal when we're winning a lot of these deals that are close or there's other people involved, because people are not stupid. So if they understand that their house is worth $300,000, we'll use that for some simple math, fixed up, right? $30,000 to sell it. Now we're at 270. So we walk them through the rehab and we say, so it's going to be around 60K. Like we agree on that. Yeah, I think it's going to be around 60K. So we take that off.
I want to emphasize that part where what you just said right there, where you say you agree with that, because that is a collaborative discussion, because we do sales training regularly in Scale. And I've heard people start to do this, but the problem is they are telling them this is
exactly
what the
no, this has to be a discussion. Like you're a consultant. You need to be the real estate professional. And that's something also that I'll preface these meetings is that I'm going to walk around the property. I'm going to do all this. I'm going to give you an offer, blah, blah, blah. And if at the end of it, we don't end up working together, I just want to point you in the right direction, because I've been in this business for a long time and I have a lot of contacts, and maybe there's a different way I can help you out. And people really appreciate that. And we have done that before, where we just pass it to a realtor or we pass it to, whatever, like we help them out with a contractor or whatever they might need if they don't end up working with us, And on that note, taking care of people, we've had sellers that we have not bought their houses give us referrals and ended up winning those deals. So that's the whole thing. Like, Alex Hormozy talks about that, is taking a prospect and making sure you leave no stone unturned, asking for another referral, asking for repeat business. So anyways, back to the math, so now we're at 210, right? We were at 270 minus 60. And then we need to make a couple bucks, and we're going to have some closing costs. You know what I mean? So I'm going to be at 170. You know what I mean? And so when you do it that way, there's no like questions in the seller's mind. The only questions are if they disagree with your rehab and they disagree with your ARV, because nobody's getting around selling their house costs. Nobody's getting around closing costs. Those are all understandable numbers for them. You know what I mean? And so something that you can do, and again, I hope there's no sellers listening to this, is you can use comps that are slightly lower. So you know your ARV is 320, but they're saying 300. You know the rehab's 40, but they're saying 60. There's your gap. There's your spread.
Yeah.
And I think that all seasoned wholesalers know that, but I really think that a lot of newbies don't. And so, and a lot of people don't use math. Like you said, Mike, they'll just say, hey, so we looked at the house. We really liked it. I think it's going to be a really good fit for us, blah, blah, blah. They're just talking. They're not listening to the prospect. They're not asking for answers. And they say, we're going to be able to offer you $120,000 for your house with like no explanation. And people are just like, what?
Cody, how, you're doing that and everyone has their MAO, like all these calculators, right? How far underneath are you guys starting on that MAO that you guys know that you can offer on these places?
Yeah, I mean, it depends, right? If they've already set a number and I know it's hard, or if there's no number at all, then I'm going to go 10 to 20, depending on the rehab under the MAO so that I can negotiate a little bit and come up, right? Oftentimes those numbers are done on the spot as well. I don't have an MAO until I get to the property. You know what I mean? So that's a quick, especially if you have salespeople working for you, maybe have them send you the numbers. When they get really good, they will understand how to do rehab and you'll have them going low enough. And I know a lot of your guys do this, Mike, your sales guys, they go low enough to where there's room for error. You know what I mean? If rehab is really 80, but if rehab ends up being 80, but you have it projected at 60, you have, a 30, maybe 40K buffer to protect you. You know what I mean? So that's something I see. We all see new wholesalers do that. They go up way too high and then they're dispoing a non-deal that they're trying to make at this point $1,000, maybe $6,000 on, And so you need to create that 20K at least spread, in my opinion. That's the standard that I teach, because that could still easily end up being a $5,000 deal. Yeah. People might disagree with your ARVs. They might disagree with your rehab, and then you're screwed.
The number one buyer complaint from about other wholesalers is they don't know rehab numbers, which forces them to lock up the deals too high, which then puts a bad precedent for the seller because they think they're going to get that price when no one can pay that price.
Of course, exactly. So what you need to do as a new wholesaler is listen to your buyers and ask them, what did I do wrong? What did you see on that? Can you walk me through the rehab on this? And then take some freaking notes and write it down so that you know that a new furnace costs $2,800, and you know that an AC compressor costs $1,700. You know a roof costs $7,500. So then you can write that down. It doesn't take that long. And then you can impress somebody the next time you call them back. Hey, I think it's closer to 50. I thought maybe 30, but you taught me about the whatever. And I put that in my calculations,
Totally. What I mean? And if you're off and you're going to make 25, you can still probably make 5, like going back to that, right? It's better than nothing.
Exactly. So yeah, that's the pitch when it's a difficult one and there might be multiple offers or they're at a hard price. You know what I mean? Other than that, the process is the same, reminding them of the pain points, reminding them of the rehab, and then just going confidently in with your offer. You know what I mean? Just because sometimes we don't explain the ARV and we don't discuss a value and we don't discuss rehab and we'll just go in with our offer with confidence.
Cody, I got one more question on that. Yeah. Sorry, Mike, then I'll let you talk. When you're doing the appointments and like sellers can feel that confidence, are you doing these offers on the spot after you do this walkthrough and like trying to lock it up right then and there? And I asked that because I used to be like, okay, I got my numbers. I'll have to go home, pencil it out. Then I'll call you tomorrow. Then they never pick up the phone again. Right. Yeah. So like, what does that kind of look like for you guys?
Totally. I think that my checklist for that was motivation. Right.
Sure.
So if I knew that there was motivation, or I knew there was other people coming out on the appointment, or I knew that the people were already there previous to that day or that week, then I'm going to make the offer on the spot. Right. But if they're not in a hurry, or if you have a really busy day and you really do need to pencil out the rehab because it's a lot higher, or you were at an appointment prior and you just didn't get a chance to run comps, like you don't even have an ARV to work your math off of, then I think it's fine. But what I do is I'll get back to that seller the same day. You know what I mean? the same day. And I'll always, when I leave, I'm always like, hey, do you have my phone number saved as Cody, the house buyer or whatever? You know what I mean? And they'll be like, yeah, I do. I'm like, okay, did you save it? Like you put my name in there and, make a little joke or something. And they're like, yes, I did. Like just checking. I get a lot of spam calls. I have rentals. I get how it goes. You know what I mean? And so that confirms with them that they're going to answer the phone because you just had that little joking moment. And people are simple. They're going to just do it because you kind of like held their feet to the fire by asking, like, when I call you, you have my number, right? Like,
Totally.
Yeah. And if they ghost, there's not much you can do about that. You know what I mean? Other than just hound them and keep calling them.
Show back up the next day.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, that speed to lead is definitely like a thing that you're very, very good at being serious about too, because I mean, like that, a lot of the deals that we've gotten here since we started up again locally a few months ago. I mean, even right before this, you were like, yeah, we got a smoking hot lead that came in this morning, and you like drove out 30 minutes from your house to go walk the
that's
house.
why I'm like not shaved and I have a hat on. Like I actually called Mike. I'm like, is this thing going to be on video? Cause I look like shit, and that's because we got a lead and I have a busy afternoon and I knew I wasn't going to get out there later. So I had an hour and a half in my schedule. So I got in the truck and I went out and got the deal. And that's what I always tell the newbies I mentor is like, get in the truck, go drive the deal, go make the offer, whatever you got to do. This was a situation where an old man is being put into medical care, and the gal out in Minnesota has power of attorney over his house, and she got our mailer and she just needs to sell it. You know what I mean? So those types of leads are hot. So, there's somebody living in the house. I pounded on the door. Nobody answered. I left a note with my phone number telling them the house was going to be sold and give me a call if you want to work through it, but we're going to buy it. So,
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
that's the stuff you got to do.
It is totally. That's the hustle piece right there, which is so important. But I think in general, so many of your strengths revolve around the fact that you treat all of these conversations with sellers as like a collaborative effort, and I think that so many times, I mean, so even you're talking about like the comping and reno thing earlier. We like the call that we interviewed this morning that we listened to this morning in our sales training for Scale. They had a whole like peacocking with the seller because he told him what the comps were. Right. And it wasn't like hey, this is what I'm seeing. It was like, oh, well, the house now she only sold for 400. So yeah, I can't offer more than that. Yeah, it wasn't a productive conversation. And, even talking about like how you have them save your number and different things. Like, it's like, yeah, we want to make sure that we can keep in touch. It's not like, hey, can you save my number in your phone? Make sure that,
all about tone
who
and
to call
delivery.
back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and there's two types of sellers, like to speak to that. There are investor sellers and there are your regular homeowner sellers with a big time fixer upper, right? So the type of person that you are with the regular person, the second person, is the mom and pop house flipper. It's just me and my sister. We grew up in Spokane. We've been doing this. We're able to scrape a living together. If they ask, then yeah, we've done around 60 flips or something, even though we've done 500. You know what I mean? So you go at it with this humble, I'm a local, I'm just like you, trying to make a living mindset. With the investor, that's where you can start to peacock and you can do your thing because people like that. That's just like how they want to put you in a box and measure you. Can you perform? Can you even buy this thing? I got like 100 of these things. I live in Minnesota now. Oh yeah, absolutely. I own like 50 doors myself. Like we're looking for houses all the time. I would love the opportunity to make you an offer. Blah blah blah. You don't talk to sellers like that. They're just like they feel like you're above them immediately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. One more sales question before we get kind of into the end of show stuff here. When it comes to long-term follow-up, it's another question that we get a lot. So you've been rejected, you can't reach terms, someone goes into your pipeline and you're going to call them again in 3 months, let's say. How do you restart those conversations, especially when it ended with like you're offering below what they're willing to pay? It's not like circumstantial, like they can't move out yet or things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they go a little something like this, like they answer the phone, hello. Hey, Mike, this is Cody. What's going on, man? Oh, who are you? Like, they don't even know who you are. Oh, yeah, backyard home buyers. I don't know if you remember. I went out and saw your house. Like, oh, yeah, what's up, man? Like, what can I do for you, And then I always just say, I was just calling to check up on you, I don't got a lot going on this week. And I couldn't remember if you ended up selling that thing or not. I don't know. I just try to call people that I've talked to a couple months ago once in a while and just sort of see what's shaking. I do it super nonchalant like that. And that's how I train sales guys on all calls in the beginning anyways, is just to be very nonchalant, very much a person, you know, and people are so laid back when you talk like that. They're just like, oh yeah, I remember. Yeah. Your offer was way too low, or I ended up going with a realtor, or I sold it to your competitor, or, you know, I haven't sold it, I'm still thinking. And then the conversation's back up and running and you resurrected that lead, you know. But the worst thing that we can have in our CRM, as we all know, is a bunch of maybes sitting there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you're quickly getting to the point to whether you can push that thing off as a no or a sold or whatever, or you can move it back into the pipeline as an active lead. You know what I mean? But the worst thing you can do is, hi, this is Cody with Backyard Home Buyers. I just wanted to follow up and say the F word. And it's like, just barf, dude. Like I'm immediately barfing and I don't want to talk to you anymore.
And a lot of times in those specific situations, that if it's been 5-6 months, recheck your comps, because they might sell at the same price and that comp might be higher.
Totally. We had that with Gardner, Mike. We're closing that today, you know, a $20,000 wholesale fee. That thing's been sitting in the CRM
really? We're getting paid today?
18 months. That thing's been sitting in the CRM, you know, and he wanted the same number that we talked to him about 7 months prior, but your old partners that you had were morons and they didn't see the potential. It was a deal all along.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think our record for that, we had one, I remember it actually came in our first batch of mail that Dan and I ever did. And it was this guy, he had like the sort of house hack triplex here. He's like, I want $300,000 for it. This 2020. I'm like, that is ridiculous for this thing in this neighborhood, you know? And then sure enough, we followed up with him regularly. 2 years later, we're in 2022, call him up and we're, you know, hey, we did what you said not to do, because that's how much we suck. He's
calling to follow up.
And he was he's calling to follow up. You know, would you willing to consider offering your place? And he said, yeah, absolutely. He's like, I'll take $300,000 for it. And we look at, we're like, this thing is worth $500,000 now. Absolutely. Let's do it. Right. I think we ended up assigning it to somebody. I think we made like a $50,000 fee.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like,
I mean, it doesn't matter that you said the wrong stuff. Like, yeah, but the key there is that you followed up, and fortune is in the follow up. And we have to remember that we can't use these back end terms on the front end of our business, right? I say that all the time. We just said follow up. We say KPIs. We say all this real estate mumbo jumbo. We don't speak like that to sellers. We put on a regular person hat. You know what I mean? You need to talk to them like you talk to your wife or like you talk to your best friend. You know what I mean? Do you talk to your wife like this? Like, hey, I was just trying to follow up on dinner this evening. Like, is that how you talk to your wife? And you laugh, but it's so simple. When you call a prospect and you say, hey, what's going on? Like, how was the week? Like, you think I could get out there later this week, or what are you thinking? You know what I mean? That's how you talk to a friend. Yeah. And so they're immediately disarmed. They're immediately collaborative. You're almost confused and looking for some help, and they come to your aid on the phone. You know what I mean? Like, when you play up, a prospect plays down, and when you play down, they play up. Like, I always use the analogy, like you're standing in line at the DMV and you look out the window and you're like, man, this weather sucks. Like, yeah, well, at least it's nice out. Like, that stranger just played up when you played down, but you could say something like, man, it's so nice out today. Yeah, well, we're standing in line at the DMV though. You played up, they played down.
Yeah.
Oh, that's super good.
Yeah, I'm gonna start using that. Yeah, the wife analogy is great, because so we had a sales guy on our team. This was a little while ago. We did a call review, and he said on the call to the seller, if I could have slapped him through the screen, I would have. He was like, yeah, how you doing, mister? Just wanted to check in with you. I'm hoping to lock up this deal before the weekend. I was like, what the fuck, dude? Like,
it's going for the hard close.
I was like, why would you say that? Yeah, but that's great. Yeah, I know, right? Using the term lockups, like you talk to your wife that way. Hello, honey, I'm trying to lock up the sex for tonight. Would you like to?
So attractive.
Can we have that discussion?
Like that. Yeah, that's terrible. And it's like, you know, it's a tale as old as time. That sometimes ABC, always be closing. Like that's just how people.
Well, sometimes the newbies, like, they'll get the super moded laydowns that happen once in a blue moon, and that'll work. I know, and that will reinforce the wrong thing.
Right.
Totally. Yeah.
Yep.
That's always the challenge. But awesome. Well, tons of good stuff, Cody. You had some great knowledge on this. So we're gonna dive into our end of show questions here. And I know you know our first one, so I don't know if you have one in the.
I don't know the end of show questions actually.
Oh, you know the first one because we've talked about it, but this is always the crowd favorite. But what is your craziest real estate investing story? And I know you have some great ones. We have had some great war stories together, so you can pick whichever one comes.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, when you say together, I just think of like that Cortland house, the story that you told me, and then I ended up buying that.
That was a great one.
Dealing with those people.
Yeah, that was a good one. Or like the DeSmet 7 unit that we flipped together. That one had 7 stories in itself.
Yeah.
Each like the whole unit that we did there was like a Netflix anthology series that like has
totally
different stories for like each person, you know, that like aren't really related, but kind of are.
So many creatures out there. It was crazy. Yeah. We bought this 7 unit together with, Mike and Dan, Allie and I, and, we bought it completely full of non-paying tenants during COVID.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we're like,
it's in Washington State where you couldn't evict anybody.
Yeah, we're like, we're going to kill this deal. This is so easy. Cash for keys, every single one of them. So, you know, to speak to that, I mean, we made some good money on that. So that blind ambition works. But let me, you know, this thing was hard. One of the gals we had, I mean, every single person had a story, like you said. But one of the gals, Allie and I, had to go to her house every day for about 3 different days in a row until she was ready to move. Because every day she said she was ready. We hired a moving truck. We sent it out there. I think we paid guys to like get all of her stuff out. And then she got in my truck with her 4 Loco and like her, you know, attached CD player headphones and like, you know what I mean? She gets in the back and she's just like, shit, this, you know, it's like, I drive a Ford F-150. There's so much space. And she's like, it's so cramped back here. Like, I'm like, what are you riding in? Like a limousine? This is like the best backseat on the market, you know? And so we drive her to the hotel where she's going to stay. And she goes inside and she comes out just like screaming and yelling. She's like, they don't want this and that. You know, this lady could not have a conversation with anyone. So we have to go inside, talk to the manager, put the cash down because we didn't want our cards on anything. You know, we paid for like the whole week. And then we took her to the storage unit and we got her in there and she got a bunch of crap out, you know. So, I mean, it's not that crazy of a story, but it's the level of involvement that I think that so many people would never do. You know what I mean? Yeah. And this was the worst one. She was the worst one. So we had like, you know, 3-4 hours, whatever it was, of pain and discomfort. It got our goal achieved and we got her out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's like saying the level of involvement. It's like you and I were talking about yesterday. Like, I don't know. I just feel like most people getting into the game these days aren't willing to do that shit. Like it's like it was a different ball game back then, man. Like that whole property had so much like weird stuff. Like so that's funny. I didn't even know that story that you dealt with that. The one that always sticks with me is when Dan and I went to give the one meth head guy that was the last one to leave his $5,000 that he shook us down for.
That's
and
right.
Then we give him the money and he's like, I'm not leaving this. I could take the refrigerator. And then he like whistles over his buddy who's sitting in the parking lot in like a crappy old sedan. And they go and they pull the refrigerator out. They strap it on the top of the sedan and just drive off into this ghetto neighborhood.
into the sunset.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. If you want to hear one more quick one, you know, I got one more quick one. This is a cash for keys deal. This is probably the craziest cash for keys deal I ever did. It was a house out in a really nice neighborhood called Liberty Lake out here in Spokane. And an investor buddy of mine actually bought it and still lives there to this day because he helped me with the deal. It's a big, like 6-bed, 4-bath house. Anyways, this doctor out of Maui calls me and tells me that he's got this house and needs to sell it. But the only problem is his ex-wife lives there and she's not going anywhere. So we go to the house and we meet with this gal. And sure enough, she believes that she owns the house, which she has absolutely no legal right to. So we know we're going to have to do some type of cash for keys deal. But this lady's got the fake boobs, the you know, the juicy couture, you know, 1990s outfit. Like she's like Liberty Lake housewives. Like, and if anybody's listening that's from Spokane or North Idaho, she kept pointing to Legacy Ridge and she's like, that's where I belong. I'm going to be up there in Legacy Ridge. Like, you know what I mean? And so long story short, we went back and forth with this lady. We started at $1,000 and the deal was so good that we ended up needing to pay her $20,000 cash for keys to get her out of the property after we closed. And the whole time the doctor from Maui is calling me and she's calling me, and I am a marriage counselor fully in the middle of it. And she's telling me like, what did Mike say this time? And I would tell her, and then Mike would call me and be like, well, what did she say about this? And like, and what was she wearing? And I'm like, what? Like, and he was such a creep because she was pretty good looking, and I could tell he was old, and he was so sad that he had like lost her. You know what I mean? And it was just crazy. Like, I was just in the middle of the whole thing, and we ended up getting her out. She got her $20,000, but yeah, that's a pretty crazy one too.
Yeah, but what'd you make on it though?
We made $60K, I think. It was a great deal.
So exactly right. And the point being, you were willing to pay the $20,000 to make $60K on it, because why would you not do that? But again, there's so many people that they get locked in like these weird principles with stuff where they're like, well, that seems like way too much for cash for keys. If you're going to make $60,000, who gives a shit?
Oh yeah.
Right?
If it meant the deal getting done, I would have done 50 if we were going to make 10 or, whatever the math is. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. So awesome. We should just do like a whole segment of just you and me talking
talked about that
stuff
and telling other people's stories.
Dylan, you can come too.
If you need content
for
the
Cody tells other people's stories better than them.
That's true. But if you need content for your animated series, there's a good one right there.
Yeah, that is definitely a good one.
I'm just terrified these sellers are going to find these podcasts one day.
No, that's fine. We already got their house. We're good. But
we'll do the second one. I don't know. I think I know the answer for Cody, but if you could go back to the very beginning, what's one thing you would do differently?
One thing I do differently in the beginning. Oh man, I guess I would have focused more on systems and processes in the regards of like, really the only mistake that I felt like I really made in the beginning was moving too fast without a plan, if that makes sense. So I know this is going to be a very vague answer, but I would say know where you're going and have a target. You know what I mean? Whether that's, I want this many rentals or I want my business to look like this, because, a fault of being a high action taker and figure out stuff later is sometimes you don't figure that stuff out later and you're just constantly taking action. And then you might just find yourself spinning one day, which is kind of how I felt when I sold my business in 2022. And so I would be intentional with the direction that you're heading, you know what I mean? And just stick to the plan.
Sure. So have an end in mind, but that end can be dynamic as things go along.
Right. Yeah. Things are always going to evolve, but at least you have a goal. You know what I mean? Just like if you set out on a race or anything, you know where you're going and you're not going to stop till you finish.
Totally. Sweet. All right. Where can people find you, follow you, and reach out to you?
I think I'm like Cody Cressey, or you just search Cody Cressey. I have a pretty unique last name on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. I don't really do like Twitter or TikTok or anything like that.
This is how good you are at social media. This is how good Cody is at social media, Dylan. When he came down to KeysCon, I was talking about how I was going to the Alex Hormozi conference next week, and he goes, "Who's that?" Literally had no idea.
You're under a rock.
Yeah.
Small business owner had no idea. Yeah. But,
I'll be getting back after it.
That's why you're so successful what you do, though.
I know, but I've seen the power of what other people have produced just from a referral standpoint and networking standpoint. And so it is one of my goals this year, rest of this year, is to start to post more and start to be more involved. You know what I mean? So I will give that a shot to anybody that gives me a follow.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys want some more direct access to Cody and have him help you out with some sales, you should join the Scale community. collectingkeys.com/scale, because he's starting to do a lot more with us over there. And then you'll get to learn from one of the best in the industry. Cool. Cody, dude. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. Tons of great information. We really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll have you on again sometime in the not too distant future.
So, yeah. Thank you guys too. Cool. Super appreciate you, Dylan and Mike. Thanks, boys.
Yeah, that was great, Cody. That was a good episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome, guys. Well, thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Peace.